Hello, welcome back. This is probably going to be a shorter episode because I am exhausted, but imagine we had an intro. Anyway, this is the Sniff Session with your host Valerie, the niche sampler. Find us on YouTube and Spotify for the pod. Otherwise, we're also on TikTok and Instagram for other fragrance content. Let's just jump right into it because I'm not going to do every scent I've been wearing. I'll just highlight two. But something that is hilarious is that, like in COVID, when I was using samples and perfume as a way to keep track of my capacity to smell, I've been using a little bit of retail therapy to keep track of my capacity to excrete serotonin and dopamine. A little bit of retail therapy here or there never hurt nobody but my wallet. So I picked up a couple of things. First of all, 2 body sprays because they're good for body and hair. Pacifica, and I got French Lilac, which is really lovely and fresh. But I also got their Island Vanilla, which is also a fun casual vanilla extract, vanilla kind of body mist, and they do the job. They're quite nice to just spritz on. I kind of feel like I now have an extra routine in my body care ritual, but that's neither here or there. I also picked up the Korres Lilac body cleanser, which is so fresh, floral, it feels really realistic, and I've just been having lovely showers. But another thing I picked up, because my friend Emma made a video guessing the perfume of a recently viral podcaster named Brooke Schofield. And because there was a clip of Brooke in a room and there was Delina behind her, so Emma guessed that she's a perfume girly and she wears Delina. Brooke actually stitched her or referenced her and said, "Hey, I saw that you thought that that was my perfume. It's not. I actually wear Born Dreamer," which is a content creator perfume release by, I believe, one of the D'Amelios. They did a lot of TikTok dancing in the 2020s, the early 2020s. And so I saw that on Douglas, which is the DACH region Sephora, DACH being Germany, Austria and Switzerland. And it was on sale, so it was 15 francs. And I thought I could swing that. So I picked up a bottle. And the very next day, she got cancelled. That was really, really funny because I wanted to do a bit to say, what does Brooke Schofield smell like? And now it just doesn't feel appropriate to make that content because she's going through enough. So this is Born Dreamer by one of the D'Amelios, Charlie D'Amelio. And for a content creator, I suppose, pseudo-celebrity perfume, this is really good. It's synthetic as hell, but it doesn't smell cheap and nasty. This is a pear ambroxan fragrance, essentially, and it's quite refreshing, and I've really been enjoying it. And now I will enjoy it in secret or with you, because I do not need to be associated with scandal, especially not racial scandal. I am not Whoopi Goldberg. If you understood that reference, you need to spend more time outside. Anyway, apart from the 15 franc olfactive marvel, but now a little bit of a social no-no, I've also been wearing a recent PR, which is Issara by Dusita Parfum. And I have been wanting and craving this fragrance for years. It's a gorgeous, grassy, tonka, musky fragrance that's so lovely. It's fantastic. And it feels dark. It makes me feel special. It makes me feel like I have refined taste. It makes me feel like I know things others do not, which is quite literally the truth, because of my field of work and also because of our shared niche hobby I don't think a lot of people walking on the street would know what Dusita Parfums is. And I think this is one of those fragrance brands that is so special. I don't think it will be a household name unless people, I mean, I think we're beyond the kind of world where things like Chanel No. 5 get popularized, I think. Because now there's so many options and so many choices, and unfortunately the art of perfumery is a lot about seduction these days. So not always is it going to be the special pieces that, or the special houses that get put on the foreground, the forefront. And that's kind of okay. I think the way that everything is so personalized allows the brand to maintain how special it is. I also actually just received today in PR some fragrances from a newer house out of the UK called Jouissance Parfum. And their kind of energy is around Anais Nin and kind of female erotica and sensuality. And I was going to pick up a discovery set by my ace by myself, but they reached out and said, please send us your Addy address. We would love to send you some scents to try. And so they sent me their initial collection, which they've called the Collected Works, which I love because it's got the literary reference, and I really love their presentation. We love a good beige. I'm a millennial. I do love a good beige. And it's got 3 fragrances, and I've already sniffed them today, so I thought you might as well hear about it first, since I'm not going to talk about this for a couple of weeks. And when I first smelled the first fragrance, which is Le Bague Or, the golden ring, I first thought, yes, perfume is back, baby. And then I thought, the kids aren't going to understand this. And this is so funny considering I just spritzed myself with the synthetic Perrin and Broxton fragrance talking about perfume is back and the kids won't understand. But because these are inspired by classic literary women and these kinds of more classic notions of sensuality, the actual olfactive fingerprint of the collection makes a lot of sense. However, I do think this is not going to be a brand that's going to be very viral, but it is going to be the absolute perfection, or the absolute crème de la crème for a certain woman. I'm thinking women like Dita Von Teese. I'm thinking women like Erin Parsons. I'm sure you follow her. Beautiful makeup artist. We're mutuals on TikTok. She also has this amazing like historical makeup archive. She's going to eventually open a museum. Or people who just love retro fragrances, vintage fragrances, and classic approaches to perfumery. Those are the people that are going to love this collection. Because the first thing I first smelled was this. This is not that one. It's a huge kind of classic patchouli amber kick. It took me back. It took me back to smelling classic chypres or classic fougères that has that kind of real dusty, musty musk. And the ambers that feel dusty. And also has kind of a bright facet with some pink pepper and rose and orange. But in the heart of it, you feel the reference to 1930s perfumery. I feel the echo of Chanel No. 5. I feel the echo of like L'air du temps. Those kinds of fragrances. But it's so lovely and subtle. Then the next fragrance is En Plein Air, which is a gorgeous citrus, but it's quite bitter. We're getting that lemon peel kind of citrus. And apparently there's supposed to be some musks and white florals in there, but I mainly get the citruses. And again, to me, it took me back to that classic structure of a proper eau de cologne. And it's like we're revisiting these classic formulae and bringing them into the modern day. Because in reality, what kind of fragrances would these classic literary women be wearing? It would have been these classical DNAs. The vinyl one is my favorite, which I can't spray on myself because I'm wearing 10 different things now, so I'm not going to enjoy it as much. And it is called Les Cahiers Secrets, and this is beautiful. This is my favorite one. This to me smells like a classic makeup compact pressed powder. And I think each one has a specific inspiration. This one is the only woman in a archivist club or something like that. So you can see the picture of this woman who's put together and a rose among the thorns. And I think that somebody who's in a male-dominated space, personally, I feel like I would just up the femininity because I'm already different, so I might as well just lean into who I am. So these were so exciting to smell because I've always wondered like where people would get that introduction, because there are people who swear that the best perfumes were made in the 70s, 80s and 90s, and everything that we have today is just kind of a regurgitation, a redoing, a copycat. But of course, for us, all of the vintage fragrances are vintage, and you really have to have the time and wherewithal to hunt down these classic structures. So this was really surprising and delightful. I think that you could have almost gone really sleazy with the collection, but it's really well put together. It's quite polished, but it's definitely moody. And I can't wait to play with them on skin to see how they wear and what they're like. So yeah, I mean, like La Bague d'Or has got steel chains as a note as well, apart from the geranium rose violet. Yeah, the violet with the patchouli and the animalic musk and the amber together, that works quite well. That gives you that real vintage vibe. And then the En Plein Air has bergamot, lemon, grapefruit, white flowers, rain and musk. And then my favorite has fresh cut lilies, cumin, pressed powder, heliotrope, orisk and musk. And that's the other thing, the way that the orris is in this composition with the musk, I think they've just used a lot of like clean white musks in this one because it feels almost laundry like in a way. I've been looking for the perfect orris. I've been kind of mulling between Liquide Imaginaire, Tapis Volant, or Violette's Nuée Bleue. Or I could just get Glossier U, not that I would know where to get it in Switzerland, but that would be another option. So that's really exciting. So that's Jouissance. And now you know what to expect if you are intrigued, because I did post a little unboxing on my TikTok. It was very low effort, but I wanted a way to say, hey, I have this and thank you. I was supposed to actually film this on Saturday, I believe. That's when I was in the lab. Yes, it was on Saturday. But I didn't because I just needed to do other things. But I had seen a video of a singer. I think she's British Zimbabwean. Her name's Rachel Chinuriri. And she was telling the story behind a song that she had composed in honor of one of her best friends and who she had a crush on. And she was saying something like, love is a currency that cannot be overspent, but it can definitely be underspent. And I just feel like that was such a beautiful message that I wanted to share with you, because I think sometimes we can get caught up in our heads and caught up in appearances and hesitation that we maybe stifle our feelings, especially warm feelings. People want to know that they're loved. People want to know that they're seen. And I think, especially I found in this country, in Switzerland, it's less of a warm place. And I think that sometimes you have to be the one that radiates the love or radiates the goodwill around others to build that community. So if you are in a place where you feel perhaps a little less loved, you can really emanate that, and maybe some of it will reflect back to you. But that was so beautiful, and it just got me really soppy and romantic. And then I was thinking about the broader idea of passion, and how sometimes I find, especially in my comment section, not necessarily people who frequent my page, but people who maybe are just stoppers by, and how often people are looking for authority or looking for structure on how to have a passion, or how to engage with their passion. And I think that is so sad, because I think somebody the other day asked me if they could layer a fragrance with another 2 fragrances, and I was, of course, delighted that they would want my opinion on that, but just try. And I think that sometimes we become so risk averse that we forgot to actually do a threat level check. Like, is this actually a risk that I'm taking, or am I just being too shy? Because I think that perhaps that's how we're holding ourselves back from delving deeper into our passions. And I was also thinking in terms of content creation, I mean, you can really love perfume and you don't have to talk about it. Or you can love perfume and you don't have to speak about it on video. I mean, this is really beautiful girl who also lives in Switzerland. She's got a TikTok and Instagram, but she does everything in French. I think her username is Talk About Perfumes. She is so stunningly gorgeous in person, but she prefers to just do voiceovers or talk and demonstrate with her hands. And I think that that's lovely. You find the right compromise to engage with something that you want to do. And she's really successful at it too. I mean, she's got, I think, like double the following I do. I'm just looking at wrote notes, because also that's the other thing, you don't have to formalize it and you don't have to monetize it. And this is something that I'm trying to learn and remember, because I really love art. I love looking at art. I love the play of drawing and sketching, and I haven't done it in years because in my little brain I need to be as good at drawing and oil painting as I was when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, when I was doing it every single day. I had prompts, I had a guide, I had teachers, I had themes, I had structure teaching me. And now, of course, I'm 28 and I can't do those things anymore, and I feel sad about it. So it stops me from doing the art and doing the passion, and that's so sad, because I think about it all the time. So I just need to do it. And I know there's this particular piece I want to make, and I want it to come out well, but I need to actually practice and explore shapes and representation in order to do so. And I just need to step out of the desire of wanting to become a perfectionist in order to do so. This is also why I love indie brands so much. People who thought to themselves, I think I could make a smell that captures this little essence or this little thing, and then they do it. And that's just blows my mind, and they're so brave and it's so inspiring. So I just wanted to also make that reference. Also with music, art, I wrote down all of the passions that aren't necessarily my career, or things that I like: music, perfume, art, film, culture, fashion, jewelry. And another thing I said is that people should think about everything in terms of seeking reference, not expertise. So I would love for my pages to be considered a form of reference, and potentially just the page that your friend has. Because I don't think I am an authority on anything. I don't think there is an authority in fragrance. There are people who know what they're doing. There are people who know what ingredients are. There are people that can break down a formula in terms of the smell. But at the end of the day, no matter how many years in the industry somebody has, or how much expert knowledge they have on anything, at the end of the day, the expert on your passion is you, because you're the one engaging in it. So that's just where my head's been in the preamble. Unfortunately, it is quite fortunate that I don't have any gossip to spew, because I Don't think it's always necessary, don't think it's always handy. One thing I did do in my exploration, which is kind of driving this week's theme, is I did buy some botanical fragrances from a Belgian perfumer called Kamila Aubre, who I first discovered because of my friend LC on TikTok, who does a lot of themed posts. So sometimes she'll become hyperfixated on some video game or other, and then she has to send people according to certain characters because there are a lot of nerds on the internet. And at some point, people were really into the show Killing Eve, and people wanted to know what the main character, whose name is Villanelle, would smell like, because there was quite a prominent scene with her buying a specific fragrance, and she said that she wanted to smell powerful. And Kamila Aubre, who I believe, unrelated to the show, had created a fragrance called Villanelle, saw LC's video in which she featured the fragrance Villanelle, and then she sent her a bottle, and then kind of had a little bit of a viral moment. So that's how I came to know her. And so I've had some of her samples for a while, but I hadn't purchased anything. There was one I had my eye on, but I didn't buy it because actually I never really have a good excuse. I think I just get distracted with the other things that the black hole at the pit of my heart called desire wants. And now actually I did make a purchase after this sample set because I smelled something that was so different and special and unique. I said, yep, that's it, gotta have that, which I will talk to you about soon, hopefully maybe next episode or the next one after that. I might actually, unfortunately, gonna have to pause the recording right here so that I can find my blotters, but the next thing we're going to do is start sniffing through a whole bunch of natural perfume brands, because I think that these people sort of exemplify the whole artistry angle I was trying to get at, because here they've really just minimized their palette in order to create their olfactive expressions. And I think that's something that we don't really explore enough on Perfume Talk or Perfume Com in general, and I wanted to spotlight them somehow. So the thing about natural perfume is that often, to me, the formulations can smell like a herbal tincture, which to me is very useful because then I can really separate the curds and the whey. No, I can separate what is really stand out on my skin to what is just smelling interesting. And that's just kind of how I go about testing these things. But it does take a little bit of patience and a little bit of fortitude. So today we can talk about some of my favorites from Kamila Aubre and Altra. I also have a Hemajomo discovery sets somewhere. I think it's right here. I hope it's right here. Yes. No, it's not. That's Goldfield and Banks. Does anybody else have an apartment that just has samples and fragrances everywhere now? Or is that just me? Let's start with Ultra. I might have to do another pause for the advert. But Ultra, I would say, is probably one of the faces of modern perfumery because it doesn't have what I would consider a cliche take to it. For instance, these are the bottles. So sculptural, so considered. They are also refillable. They sent me a discovery set in PR, I think last year, and then I chose JasmineXXX as for a full bottle, but I'm regretting it. I mean, I have used it and I do love it, but there's another fragrance that I realize is more special and unique that I love more. But let's just go through my favorites. So JasmineXXX, which by the way, do not search JasmineXXX, search Ultra Perfumes, go to the website and then look for JasmineXXX over there because, well, we know what XXX is associated with on the internet, do we not? This is a honeyed sunset jasmine, really. And on the background of it, there is another, well, it's something that I think is a technical marvel. There is the DNA of the Ultra Skin, and the Ultra Skin is a natural musk. It's quite mineralic, and texture-wise, this is going to sound strange, but I hope you'll know what I mean. It has the texture of that feeling when you have a lump in your throat. If you don't understand, then, well, I mean, I did try. And this is just so interesting to me because I would never have thought that you can use natural materials to create something that feels so mineralic and artificial. So, brava to the Ultra team. And then everything else is quite good, but my other favorite, which I might pick up at some point, is Stone Cold Heart. It's got this beautiful olive green hue, and it smells like dried tea, a little bit of vibrant grassiness, and a slight woody touch. But yeah, this feels like a proper tea to me, like a dry tea bag. A lot of tea fragrances on the market are sweetened with creamy notes or freshened with citruses, which don't make them bad tea fragrances, but it feels less true to the ideal. And Stone Cold Heart reminds me of Unsteeped Rooibos, which, speaking of which, I'm going to receive some tea in a couple of days as well. I've really been shopping a lot. Anyway, I really love this. And if you are intrigued by the world of natural fragrances, then you should maybe check them out. And they really are quite eco-conscious, as one would imagine a natural perfume brand to be. And I mean, they don't do with anything wrapped in cellophane, but what the Discovery set does come in is completely biodegradable. And one thing I will say about natural perfumes in general, they are quite ephemeral, so you need to decide whether that's worth the investment for you. There's another thing that's amazing. It's called Ghost Flower. Unfortunately though, for me, in the opening, it does have a really smoky note that to me smells like a barbecue, but underneath that is this gorgeous dried kind of bloom. It feels like dried flowers, where you get that the scent is still imbued in the petals that are dehydrated, but it's not as luscious and balmy as it used to be. It's just that echo of a floral note. And yeah, it's quite, I would say it's almost comparable to Stone Cold Heart and with the woodiness, but if it weren't for that barbecue note, I would love Ghost Flower as well. But so far, it's JasmineXXX, Skin, and Stone Cold Heart. Also the name, hello. It reminds me of that one song that was also the theme to Good Little Lies or Big Little Lies. I will not sing on the internet, but I'm sure you'll figure out what I'm talking about. But let's get into the Kamila Aubre fragrances. So she does a combination of just natural botanical perfumes, perfume oils, and then she also does some aromatherapy kind of tinctures. I bought one that's supposed to help with PMS, and I just like the idea of having a ritual around your cycle. So I've really enjoyed that one. It smells like rose and citrus, and it's really beautiful. So even just for the olfaction itself, it's just fantastic. And I can't really say anybody has had their head bitten off by me lately, so I'm sure it works as well. And I've actually, this is my second ever order from her. I'm going into the trusty sample box to look at my initial order, because there was here a scent that there were two fragrances that really moved me. Yes, the first one is Parfum d'Esthétique, Geranium, and the other one is Lune Haiku Black Tea. Now, Lune Haiku Black Tea is kind of, I think, a parallel to Stone Cold Heart, and this was in her first iteration of her presentation. So these are in dabbers, but the eau de parfums now come in spray bottles. So here you get a really rich botanical green bulbiness, and it does dry down into more of a drier woody tea fragrance. It also has kind of a little bit of an animalic edge to it, and a lot of her fragrances do. She's not afraid to go into the patchoulis and like some more danky notes. Like, I mean, there are a lot of notes that really have a natural skank to them, and I think that she plays with them quite well. You know, I might actually still go back and get Parfum d'Esthétique. This is, I always say it's old Hollywood glamour in a bottle. I did find that her fragrances do have a little bit more staying power. It is a beautiful citric, fruity rose geranium, but the rose is a Turkish delight rose that feels grown up. I don't know why people associate rose with grandma fragrances. If your grandma smells like roses, that's fantastic. She has style, taste, and grace. But it does feel a little bit vintage, but also some of her, I think she's changing her packaging, but some of her perfumes used to come in these flacons. So you really just have a little glass topper that you dab onto your skin, which I think is rather romantic and sensual. So, and I think I ordered a bottle that has that setup, so I'm very excited to smell that. Let's see, a lot of her other fragrances admittedly to me were a bit more challenging, just because I think it's difficult to compose things without having some overlap, because of course when things are coming from the raw form and you're just using naturals alone and not synthetics, it does become more challenging. Like for instance, sometimes you have the accentuation of the really cutting greenness from when you potentially like squeeze a plant, or some things that are not as lovely to smell on yourself. So I think there is a little bit of a nuance to natural perfumery that one has to get acquainted with. I suppose I shouldn't not tell you which one that I smelled with this new order that I really loved. It is called Summer 1928. So the first thing you get is a bit of a ginger and a citrus, and then you get into like almost a whiskey arena, and it feels quite pulpy and aged. It feels like a memory that you can recall as you're sitting in some kind of bar. It feels so transportive. It feels anachronistic, and it just moved me so much. And it happened to be on sale in the flacon version, and I thought a win is a win, so I might as well. And another one I really love is her Untitled 03. I can't even, here again, I won't be able to describe anything to you because I don't know what certain things smell like in their natural form. But I will say, I tried Villanelle 02 and I didn't really enjoy it. So now I tried the newer version, Villanelle Allegorical Woods limited edition, and I really like that. The 2024 version, it's much lighter. It's still got a heavy dose of patchouli, so it's a little bit powdery, but it feels more refined somehow. And it's quite exciting and interesting and intriguing. So I'm very happy to have these in my collection now. I will be exploring more of them. And I bought the Himajoma Discovery set when I was in Amsterdam. And I was like, oh, it's Japanese, because I thought Himajoma, and also the aesthetic looks Japanese-esque. No, this is a French brand. It's a French brand. Himajoma. Hima, like Himalaya, our infinite inspiration. Jomo, Holy Mother in Tibetan, an acronym of joy of missing out, purity, authenticity, minimalism. So they apparently want to pay homage to the diverse natural beauty of the Himalayan landscape. And apparently every euro of every bottle gets pledged to the WWF for Himalaya conservation, or Himalaya conservation if you're like me and actually spend time in the foothills of the Himalayas when you're 16 years old. So I don't want to go through this discovery set with you. It kind of is giving Haiku a little bit of, I don't know, cross-cultural cosplay in a way. I think I need to do some more research. There is a scent in there that is quite great. But instead of talking about them, why don't we talk about a fragrance brand that we do know does proper cross-cultural crossing and collaboration, which is none other than Jijide. They have two new fragrances that have just released. One is called Terra and the other one is called Fuoco. So these are the continuation of their dialogue collection, where they have two perfumers creating fragrances based on their home, and then they kind of collaborate on finishing both fragrances. So one is a Kenyan perfumer. We actually briefly met him, and I actually have some of his personal fragrances as well, which I will go through. Lots of ouds, exciting. And then we have, Terra is the one by Adil, the Kenyan perfumer. And then we have Fuoco. I spoke about these before, but I thought that I will speak about them again. These ones are definitely more particular. I think that potentially these are going to be for the edgelords or people who prefer, this is sorry, I forget how much I love Terra. I will say it again, it reminds me of sunset in Africa, just before the rain, where you have the termites flying about, an orange hue in the sky, the dust is just settling, but there's a little bit of a dustiness in the air. And you smell a lot of aromatic spices. I get a little bit of a camphousness, there's a bit of a mintiness. Oh, this is so special. This is something that I'd be happy to have just in a little travel size, or maybe the sample is enough just to reference. Really artistic. And then we've got Fuoco, which is around sitting by the bonfire. And again, I should have double checked before I started speaking. Either he's Bosnian or he's Serbian. Oh, but so it's smoky. But there's something a little bit sweet and chocolatey in there as well. Now the smoke is coming back. It smells like the remnants of a fire, the charcoal that's charred and left over. Oh wow. See, when people are just working on their own stuff, you get real cool stuff. And I think that this is something that could become the next Teroni, or the next T-Rex by zoologist. I want that. Richard, you need to tell them about Fuoco by Jijide. Thank you. I think we'll leave it at that today, folks. Thank you for all of your patience, and thank you for tuning in once again. What have you been reading lately? I just finished reading The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Wrecked me. I was not in the right emotional space to be reading that book. Humans, man, we can be such terrible beings. So now I'm reading White Nights by Dostoevsky to just mull it out, because apparently I didn't buy any easy readers in the past few months because I've really been in my thought daughter era, and maybe I just need to be a chilled child at some point. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely week, and remember to sample before you buy, and as always, happy sniffing.